Hello, guys. I want to thank everyone sincerely from the bottom of my heart for the kind of overwhelming response on the first episode. I know that not everyone is comfortable talking about the things that I talk about on camera, and that's all well and good. I am voluntarily putting myself out there. I am voluntarily exposing myself, and not everyone has the same, threshold when it comes to that kind of exposure, that kind of discomfort, and that's perfectly fine. What I will say is to all the people who watched the episode and not only commented on the episode but wrote to me privately in one of my various inboxes, whether it be on Instagram or email. I really do appreciate it, and I really do just sincerely want to thank you guys for connecting with the content and with what I am saying and what I'm trying to convey with this new series, with this new channel. So thank you so much for just being here, and that's all I ask is just for you to join me here. So in this second episode, we're going to talk about kind of building upon what we were mentioning in the first episode. So like depression, insecurity, fear, vulnerability. I can say for myself as a boy growing up, and then, now as a man, here's something I wish someone would have told me. Here's something I wish I could have seen, perhaps in a YouTube video. You're okay. All right? You're good to go. You're not damaged goods simply because you're experiencing these things. And because you're experiencing these things doesn't make you those things. Here's what I mean. On one side, right, I am sick of hearing people saying, I'm depressed, I'm insecure, because there's so much more to you than those things. You aren't your depression. You are not your anxiety. You are not your insecurity. Are you experiencing those things? Do those things become a part of you on some level? Sure. But you are not those things. And I wish someone sat me down and just clearly, said that. You are fine and you are not these things that you are experiencing. Because guess what? More often than not, you don't experience them all the time. And even if you do feel like you're going through something where you are experiencing depression all the time, you're anxious all the time, I've been there too, but there's ways out, and it doesn't last. It doesn't last. As long as you keep going, it can't sustain itself. You will be okay. You are okay, and you're not messed up for feeling these things. But as frustrating as it is for me to hear people say, I'm depressed, I'm insecure, another part of me realizes that if more people actually sat down and acknowledged their feelings, their depression, their vulnerability, their loneliness, their insecurities, their fear, they would probably be better off in the long run, right? And guys, I gotta tell you, I'm including myself in this. All right, so I'm not on the outside looking in, making judgments on you people. No, I am absolutely in this group. I need to remind myself that I am not the feelings that I feel sometimes, and I also need to take better inventory on how I'm feeling. I'm going to tell you a quick story, all right? And this story pertains to denial, struggle, and then triumph, because I'm not going to leave you hanging, all right? we're going to end on a good note. So sit down, grab a snack, relax. Here's the things that keep me up at night. So when I was young, this is such a cliche story beginning. When I was young. No, but when I was very young, when I was a kid, little kid, school was really difficult for me. All right, I know I come off as a very studious intellectual on my various social media platforms, but believe it or not, I was not good in school, and it was actually a grind, and it was even at a very young age. Like kindergarten, like that space in between kindergarten and first grade. In our school system in New England, we called it readiness, where essentially you got held back in first grade. That's what it was. You did first grade twice. I was already showing signs of not doing well academically. I wasn't picking things up as quickly as the other kids, and I think I was aware of that at the time. Even I was aware of that, and I just wanted to like doodle and draw pictures. And when I would draw pictures, man, I was like in another planet. I would get yelled at because I would draw these, aerial scapes of like a dogfight, like these fighter jets like fighting each other, and I would make noise. Like I would make the noises of these like aerial battles as I was drawing them, because I was literally like in this other planet. When the teacher was trying to teach us about like our ABCs or something, I was just like gone. And when they would pull me back to reality and have me actually try to sit down and do some very simple schoolwork, it just seemed too difficult for me to even want to attempt. And I think initially my parents' like first reaction was, oh, like Jory just needs a swift kick in the pants. He just needs to like get in gear, like just do your work. Stop, like just focus. You're in school now, focus. But quickly, I think that they were forced to realize that something else might be going on here. And my dad, who is a literal brain doctor, set up a bunch of tests for me to do. All right, and I don't blame him for this. But my siblings didn't have to do these tests. For all I knew, other kids in school didn't have to take these tests and meet with these various doctors and therapists. And I don't know if you know this, but as a kid, right, when other kids perceive you as different, they can be very cruel. All right. Unfortunately, my siblings included. They didn't understand. By they, I mean my two older siblings. They didn't understand why I was having to go to these therapists and take these tests. They didn't understand why I was getting this like special attention from my parents when it wasn't attention that I wanted at all. And all of this, me having to go see doctors, me having to go take tests, me having to go to readiness, which again was that grade in between kindergarten and first grade. My sisters would use all of this as ammunition against me. They'd be like, "Oh, you had to take first grade twice. You're stupid." Blah blah blah. And I grew up agreeing with them. That was the first mistake on my part. All of these things made me feel different. All of these things made me feel like I was damaged. All of these things made me feel like I was stupid. It just othered me, right? I became othered. And it's not because of my sisters. I'm not saying that they made me feel this way. I'm saying that I was already experiencing and doing things that I didn't know if other kids were having to do, but I knew my sisters didn't have to do it, so I felt like other kids weren't doing this. So I was my own harshest critic, which is usually the case with humans, right? We're usually much more hard on ourselves than we are on other people, but it probably didn't help that my sisters, who were also young children at the time, were using all of this as like a cudgel against me. What kind of threw gasoline on the fire, so to speak, was around age 8. I was officially diagnosed with a visual learning impairment and an impairment of written expression. I have it listed here on one of my screens, along with ADHD, right? Full-blown ADHD. And as a 32-year-old man, I can chuckle at this because this is like the most benign diagnosis ever. You have a visual learning impairment, an impairment of written expression, and you have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Like it's not that big of a deal. But when I was 8, going to elementary school and then middle school, and then having to go to the nurse's office for certain periods of the day and being called in, like each teacher's room, each classroom, I should say, had a phone, and the nurse or the head office would call whatever class I was in. And if it was around lunchtime, I would get called in to go to the nurse's office to take Ritalin or Adderall, one of these medications I had to take. This is not that big of a deal in hindsight, but when I was going through this in school as a child, this was like incredibly embarrassing, right? And other kids didn't necessarily understand, and I can't expect them to have understood, but they were not always the coolest about it. They were like, "Wow, oh, something's wrong with you. Are you sick?" Blah, blah, blah. Like, "Oh, you have a disease." And so yeah, I grew up thinking that ADHD and these various like learning differences that I had was like an illness, like something that was wrong, something that would potentially like kill me. And I can laugh at that now as a 32-year-old because that's so silly. It's like the dumbest thing to be self-conscious about, but when you're a child, you don't know. So yeah, I got picked on a bit in school, but that wasn't the big issue. The bigger issue was honestly the, interactions I had with my sisters at home. They, if there was ever any tension in the family, my sisters would blame it on me and my, ADHD. If there was ever anything wrong, my sisters would be like, "Oh, well, it's because mom and dad have to focus on you because blah, blah, blah." And this was, this made me feel lonely. It made me feel like I was the only one going through this. No one understands. I'm unique in this. I'm broken. I'm f***ed up, and no one will ever get it. I couldn't have been more wrong, but that's, again, I was a kid. I didn't have any real perspective at the time. So from a young age, I learned to kind of cultivate resentment, self-loathing. It made me feel isolated, and this is all my own doing, right? It's not my fault that I had these learning differences. It's not my fault that I'm not putting that on myself. But it is my fault for kind of feeling this way. And I get that. I'm taking ownership of that. I thought that these things were huge problems that were going to be my undoing. And if only I had a little bit of perspective, or if I had someone truly sit me down and say, "You're good. This is not the end of the world, and it's literally not a big deal." Maybe I would have felt better. Or maybe people did attempt to say that to me, and I was so young and so like upset about this, I just wasn't able to hear them. But growing up, this happened in elementary school, middle school, throughout high school, into college. These things manifested into depression, anxiety, these moments when I would feel like agony in my chest where I couldn't breathe, and I would have to like brace myself because I thought that I was about to die. Later, I recognized that as like having full-blown panic attacks at a very young age. But again, when I was younger, I didn't have that label. I didn't have that understanding of what was going on. So when I would feel these overwhelming like physical like manifestations of anxiety, I thought I was just dying. And still, I did not want to acknowledge any of this. Didn't want to talk about it with my parents. Didn't want to talk about it with a therapist. Didn't want to talk about it with my sisters. Didn't want to admit it to myself. I would refuse to take my ADHD medication because if I denied taking the medicine, then I could deny having anything being wrong with me. I was good to go. I did not need the medicine. And this all seemed incredibly logical at the time, right? Don't bring anything up. Don't talk to your sisters about it. Your sisters will not make fun of you. If they don't know anything is still wrong with you, they won't make fun of you about it. If you don't have to take medication when you're at school, the kids won't know that there's anything wrong with you. This all seemed incredibly reasonable. It ended up f***ing me up real good. Because I don't know if you know, but if you like ignore a fire in your living room, the fire's not just gonna go out. It's going to spread. In hindsight, I wish I did acknowledge these things. I wish I did say, okay, I have these learning difficulties. I'm a little bit different than other kids, but there are probably other kids that are experiencing this as well. It's not the end of the world. This is making me feel kind of lonely. I should talk to my parents about it. I should tell them how I feel, because my parents would have understood. They would have been there. I know them. They wouldn't have been cold to me for telling them I feel othered. My sisters aren't being the most helpful with this, but I didn't have the skill set to even like articulate any of this. But here's the thing, dude. Life is already so complicated, especially adolescence. When you throw adolescence in it and all those hormones and body changes and figuring out where you are in the world, like, it's just insane navigating that period. But when you throw in a fight against yourself, it's, man, talk about an uphill battle. So here you are, experiencing depression, anxiety, feelings of self-loathing, feelings of self-hate, feelings of, just deep loneliness. Okay, I'm here to tell you, you are good to go. You are good. You're okay. And we can get through it. You are not beyond repair. You are okay. We are okay. I promise. And if I felt, if I've, I caught myself getting a little emotional there. And the reason why is because the thought of someone else feeling like they can't be fixed or that they're alone simply because they feel depressed, anxious, they feel vulnerable, or they have ADHD. It's like so dumb to me. Like, just talk about it. Please just talk about it, because it's not that big of a deal, I promise. But I was there, okay? I was there with you. I am there with you. Which brings us to the triumph section of the episode, okay? Because I told you I would leave you on a good note. I am proof that we are okay. So I get it, when you're going through these things, you yourself are the last person you trust. If you can't trust yourself right now, that's perfectly fine. Trust me. Not being a great student my entire life, being a bad student my entire life, I didn't know what the heck I was going to do when I grew up. But I allowed myself to continue just consuming everything that I was truly interested in, right? One of the things my parents would always tell me, life isn't black and white, Jor. Like, you can't just drop things you're not interested in and go all in on things you are interested in. Well, that's true when you're younger, but the truth is, when you're an adult, go for it. Go for it. Get rid of the things that you don't want to do and go all in on the things you want to do. Just consume the things you are interested in and take it to the highest level possible. That's what I did. I told myself I was going to commit to the things that I loved, and I was going to take it to the highest level I could. And believe it or not, it started with weightlifting. Weightlifting was a very tangible thing that I could do. The work was in front of me. If I put in the work, I would get the results. I would get stronger. I would gain muscle. I would get leaner. I started off kind of wanting to be the whole aesthetic bodybuilder thing. I was trolling around the forums of bodybuilder.com way back when, bodybuilding.com, excuse me. And then I realized, why am I training to look strong if I'm really not strong? So I switched into powerlifting. I took that to a pretty high level. And then I went into coaching, and I'm very proud to say one of my athletes still has a California state record. And when I was kind of getting out of coaching, I was very interested in this kind of new social media sphere, marketing, setting up ad campaigns, running ad campaigns, and doing sales training, actually talking to people. Because the truth is, that was my passion, coaching, talking to people, being there with people. And I realized that marketing, even if it's on social media, that's like a great way to interact with a lot of people. The social side of social media. That was like my thing. And all the while, when I was figuring out how to do this, and again, I was consulting for some professional organizations, setting up those ad campaigns, doing some sales training, bringing products to market, that sort of thing. All the while, I was uploading some pictures here and there of my watch collection. Another thing I was passionate about. And then more people kind of started showing up with that and showing interest in my watches. And it took my best friend Patrick to be like, hey, you should upload a YouTube video on this obscure Rolex Bubbleback you have. And I was like, nah, no one knows about this watch. And he was like, yeah, that's why you should make a video about it. And I made a video about it, and here we are. You see, I committed to making content about watches that I wish I had when I started watch collecting, right? To show the fun side of watch collecting, maybe to save some people money so they don't get scammed buying a fake or buying something that is not from the most reputable of people out there, because believe me, there's a lot of people looking to make a quick buck and scam a lot of people in every industry, not just the watch world. But this actually literally brings us to right here, because the way I committed to making wristwatch based content that I wish I had when I first started collecting wristwatches, I, with this channel, am committing to making content that I wish I had when I was struggling, sincerely. So when I say I love you, I mean it. And I love you guys. And I hope this helps.